Hey guys, it's your girl Shannon, and this is Shannon On Demand, where we show you how to take demand of your business to demand a better life. All right, y'all, we are on this grant making segment right now. We were talking about previously in some earlier videos about making sure that your nonprofit organization is grant ready. Well, once you've done that, what's the next step? How can you ensure grant success for your organization? Now, I will say this. Do not put all of your eggs in the grant basket. That is not what we want you to do. But we do want grant making and grant funding to be an arsenal, to be something in your well that you can fall back on, right? To kind of help you with certain things that you're doing with your organization. So while it should be some sort of funding, some sort of gaining resources in your organization, it shouldn't be your main source of support. So with that being said, again, having a solid foundation or infrastructure is so important with your nonprofit organization. So again, what is infrastructure? Having a solid foundation means that your organization has what it needs in order to propel forward, in order to move forward, in order to have that community impact that you're looking for. And believe it or not, grant funders appreciate the fact that your infrastructure is solid, that your organization, is sitting on a solid foundation. Now, here's the important question. Would you give money to somebody and you weren't sure that they were going to do the right things with the money? Would you give money to a business and you weren't sure that that business had professionalism, that business had the necessary people to work it, right? So you have to take all of these things into consideration and know that grant makers are not going to give you money just because you're a nonprofit, just because you're cute, and just because you say that this is what you're gonna be doing. One thing to bear in mind is if you don't know the workings of your program, then how are you going to be able to communicate that to somebody else? Do you know exactly what your program is going to be doing from start to finish? Do you know how you're going to get the clientele? Do you know what you're going to be doing with them if they fall into this category, into that category? So basically, you have to be able to tell grant funders what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, and the impact that it's going to have on the community. And I find that so many nonprofits struggle with this because they haven't done proper program development. And yes, I am reiterating that you need program development. It's one thing to have this great idea, but it's another thing to be able to put it on paper, making the vision plain, and then it's another thing to actually do it, to know how you're doing it. It's one thing to know why you're doing it, but how are you going to go about implementing it? And I think that is where a lot of nonprofits, especially when you're first starting out. Okay, let's back up for a minute. Okay, you've got this idea, you've gone through the steps of doing your 501c3, but now what? So many nonprofits, as soon as they get that nonprofit's 501c3 approved, the first thing they want to do is get a grant. And then they're not grant ready. They're not ready for it. There's so much planning and preparations that you have to do even before you start doing searches for grant funders. One thing that I like to do with my clients is we actually find a grant and we go through that grant page by page, line by line. So that way you can have an idea of where you may be falling short. This is what grant funders are looking for. Do you have it? This is what they're requiring. Can you do it? And that is so very important to have all of that in place before you even start the grant, the grant process. Have you taken the time to set goals? And when I mean by goals, how realistic are your goals? Now, we all want our nonprofits to succeed. We all want our nonprofits to do something for the community, regardless of what that is. But when it's time for you to set your goals, are your goals realistic? Are your goals relevant to your mission? And then, are your goals measurable? The only thing that goals are really there for is to help you track your progress. It's to help you track whether or not you're being successful in what it is that you're trying to do. And then another thing too, guys, effective leadership. Are you being transparent with your board, or are you saying, I'm the founder, so it's what I say, you don't have any right to tell me anything, blah, 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 blah. And that is not how it goes. I mean, even when you have a limited liability company and you are the owner, you are the one that's taking the risk. Even when you've got a team of employees under you, you still listen to what your team has to say. You can't build this alone. You have to have effective leadership. If you try to do the building on your own by yourself, then it's going to take longer. You're probably going to tire easily. You're probably going to get to the point where it's going to feel that this is too hard, and you're going to give up. You're going to close. And that is not what we want to do. So we want to make sure that you're properly prepared in order to go to the next step. Is it work? Yes. Are there grants available? Yes. Do you want to be able to get your hands on some of that money? Yes, 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 yes. But you have to prepare your organization in order to ensure that you're going to be able to do it. It doesn't make sense for you to keep applying for these grants, not to be awarded the funding, because all it's going to do is frustrate you, right? And we don't want that to happen, because your nonprofit was set up in the first place because you saw a need in the community and you feel and know that your organization is going to be able to fulfill that gap, to bridge that gap, to be able to do what the community needs. But you have to do your due diligence and making sure that your organization is ripe for grant funding. Use your board of directors. That's what they're there for. That's why you created the board in the first place. Everybody can be trained. If everybody's heart is set aside for the nonprofit, use your board of directors. Get input from them. Engage with your community. Get input from them as well. When setting your goals, making sure that your goals are measurable. I do want to touch on that just for a quick moment. Is your program having some sort of measurable, tangible evidence that what it's doing is working? Now, if you are a brand new nonprofit and you guys haven't really done anything yet, then you really need to get into the trenches with your board of directors and kind of see what needs to be done so that you guys can start propelling yourselves forward. You need to have tangible evidence of progress, not always tangible evidence of success, but progress. What are you doing to move forward, even if all you've done was moved from point A to point B? It's forward progression. So many times people want their nonprofits to go from A to Z in a month. And I'm sorry, but that's not realistic. You have to be able to start working on what it is that you're doing. Now, when we're applying for 501c3 tax exemption, sometimes, depending upon whose desk it lands on, it could take anywhere from 30 to 45 days in order for you to get your approval back. Why not take that time to start developing that infrastructure, making sure that your organization is even ready for grant funding? And I guess I'm spending a little bit more time on this particular issue, and it's because so often every nonprofit wants all of this grant funding, but they're not ready for it. Another thing that I also want you to keep in mind is making sure that what it is that you're doing is aligning with what these grant funders are willing to pay for. If your mission is not in alignment with what their interests and focus areas are, then you're not going to be a good match for it. And one thing that I do want to say again, to reiterate, is this: do not change your program's mission in order to get grant monies. That's not what we're trying to do. If your mission is not aligning with their program areas or their focus areas, then that's not the grant for you. And if all you're trying to do is to get grant money and you are not concentrating on your mission, on what your vision is, on what the community needs, then you're never going to get grant funding. And, let's just be realistic about it. That's just the way that it is. So basically, the blueprint for grant success is to make sure that you have a solid foundation, that there is something tangible that your nonprofit sits upon, that it can pull from when it needs to, and making sure that you've got realistic goals in place, that you've got measurable goals in place. And your goal and your mission has to be able to align themselves to the point where you're guaranteed success. It's not going to happen overnight. This is not a get rich quick kind of thing. Can your nonprofit be self-sustaining? Absolutely. There are many, many, many organizations out here that are self-sustaining, but you have to grow it. You have to be able to water it, and you have to be able to nurture it. So guys, again, thank you for sharing just a little bit of time with me this afternoon. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Give us that thumbs up. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you'll know every time that we are uploading a video. And listen, guys, I'm here to help you. And I don't want you to think that we're just constantly berating you, about the same thing. But I guess technically I am, because it is just so important for the success and sustainability of your nonprofit, guys. So again, this is Shannon with Shannon On Demand, and it's Shannon out.